Alright, half of the day video. Yeah, it's another one. Yeah, no one else to talk to. I mean, I'll just say that again as my commentary and just leave it at that. I mean, this is, but whatever. So anyway, so 6 minutes. I have a 20-minute video so far, and he hasn't said anything about the subject. He's just complaining again, about the argument. And it's, what's the point? And the dispute now is something about some accusation that there hasn't been any flip-flopping and there hasn't been any, and there's a bunch of questions again. He says he asked it a bunch of questions, and he's disappointed that I didn't answer all of his questions. And he'll concede, though, they weren't very pointed. Yeah, I couldn't find them at all. He's used this word again, pointed again. I've made videos where I said, yes, I couldn't find the points. They left no marks. I can't find your questions. If you're asking me some rhetorical question, well, do you agree with my notion that, to me, well, I've sort of said that, yes, feelings happen to individuals, but that's not the end of the story. You don't just say, that's it. Here's a football field. The quarterback thinks the game is over and he has won. Does that mean the game is over and they won? His team won? No, it doesn't. The fact that feelings happen to individuals, I will concede. Yes, to them it's bad. It's also bad as a fact in the universe. So again, how can I say we agree when we don't agree? If you're not going to add the it's also bad in the universe, they also exist in the universe, they're a feeling organism in the universe, if that's not part of the definition, I'm saying, no, I don't agree. So here you are playing a game where you're requiring me to accept one element of a fact and then deny the existence of every other aspect. You're saying, does a car have a steering wheel? And I say, yes. And you're saying, because I said a car has a steering wheel, I just said it doesn't have tires, it doesn't have wheels, it doesn't have an engine, it doesn't have paint, it doesn't have metal sides. Or plastic. No, I didn't say any of that shit by agreeing that it has a steering wheel. So, I'm sorry, but yeah, I find that obnoxious. All right. Paraphrase, statement number 2. Regarding the fact that you just keep flip-flopping from one subject to the other. You have just keep going backward. You keep going, okay, let's accept that bad is bad in the universe. Then same isn't same. And as soon as you accept that, okay, generally speaking, people are people, animals are animals, brains are brains, feelings are feelings, but so what? There's no such thing as a bad. So you just keep, whatever concession you make, you blow up the thing contingent. So there'll never be a whole answer. And that's impossible. You can't say, yes, we agree. We don't agree. I've said it before. I'll not accept your conditional statements. So what's the point? I'm saying this is the way it is. You either accept bad as a concept existing in reality, or there's no conversation. Period. If you think bad is just some conditional condition that exists in the condition of some individual having a condition, and it doesn't have any meaning outside of that condition, yeah, forget it. There's no conversation to be had. If you're saying torture is not torture, in the sense that it doesn't leak into anything else's sphere of accountability, I say bullshit. The rape victim leaks into the sphere of accountability to the rape perpetrator. It's a fact. He will not feel her pain, but he sure as fuck caused it. Yeah, so I think that's all. So I'll play this a little bit and you'll get the idea, feel for what this first 6 minutes has been. You wasted time.
Arts, they imbue you with a responsibility to clean up anything that is worse, that is bad, by so on and so forth. And this is what I take issue with.
Right, and you only take issue with it because you don't think same is same. So again, there's just no point. You think there's some way to profit by making the pain go to holiday 2. And holiday 2 is looking at you and saying, what, you think you just improved the universe, you idiot? Well, you didn't. I mean, I gave you the example. I wonder if you're going to argue the actual example I gave.
So, like I said, bemoaning this and characterising me as some kind of flip-flopper, I think is very poor form.
All right, well, I think it's very poor form to be a flip-flopper, and I reassert the accusation. That's exactly what you've done throughout this whole fucking conversation. I mean, when I have to have an argument about bad being bad, that the contingent of bad, one of the things that makes bad bad, is the fact that it has to be fixed. If it doesn't have to be fixed, it can't be called broken in a way. If something doesn't need to be fixed, you basically say it's good to go. If it doesn't need to be fixed, it's good to go. It's not broken. And the same is true of bad. If you're calling something a bad, but there's nothing about it that says fix it, change it, compensate for it, it can't possibly be bad. It's a happy accident. It's a lot of things, but it can't possibly anymore be bad because it has every characteristic of unbad. But anyway, that's called arguing the argument. Well, I'll finish this last bit.
On Inmendham's behalf.
Well, I say fucky Yui to thatty. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. Look, in his previous video, he sent me the transcript, which is nice, but that second clip he had of the 2 columns, the first column kind of explaining all the nasty words and torture and nasty and all that kind of stuff, and then the second column where he said, we don't have control over our reactions, and we do this and we do, explaining somehow the reaction to the existence of bad. Well, yeah, I don't agree with anything in that second column. The second column doesn't have anything to do with my philosophy. We can perfectly control most of our reactions to most bad circumstances. It is not our reaction that makes it bad. It is the feelings that make it bad. I could be smelling an odor now from my kitchen and say, ooh, what an obnoxious odor. But I could say, I'm not going to fix it now because I got better bads to take care of right now. And I'm not in the mood to do that particular bad. So all the time we control our reactions to badness. Now, some bads, you're going to have some sort of reflexive response, but we know they all can be controlled in the sense that we see Buddha guys set themselves on fire. They're quite obviously controlling their reactions. So they're certainly controllable. Whether you would go to the trouble of practicing your entire life not to scream when you're on fire, well, I wouldn't waste my time doing that. But clearly you can change your reactions. It doesn't change the fact that you're suffering. It doesn't change the fact that you might be being tortured. The fact that you don't scream doesn't mean that you no longer feel the pain, so to speak. Right? So you man up and I'm not going to react. I'm not going to scream like a woman. I'm not going to scream. The fact that you can do that doesn't change the fact that you're in horrible pain and in a bad condition. So reactions don't really have a goddamn thing to do with the subject of badness. Really don't. I don't know if that's even relevant. I don't know how that's meaningful. I've never stated that your knee-jerk reflexive reactions to a circumstance somehow define whether or not it's a good circumstance or a bad circumstance, when all I've said over and over again is that it's all about these goddamn things called feelings. There is nothing else. The only thing that makes value are feelings. You actually have to have a feeling for a bad condition to exist. If no bad feelings exist, no bad condition exists. I've said that. Agree? Disagree? You think there's bad conditions and nothing feels bad? Nothing's conscious state is degraded in any way whatsoever, and yet somehow the event is bad? I don't think so. I don't think that's possible. Again, that's called argument. Relevant argument. Continuing. Alright, only got to about 9 minutes. So he asked the direct question, do you understand the arbitrary nature of definitions? No. We've already been over this. I don't think there's anything arbitrary about them. I think all concepts have a rudimentary, intrinsic, okay, they're based on some intrinsic circumstance, some solid circumstance, like the distance between the Earth and the Moon, some fact, okay? And so most definitions, yeah, there can be words where people don't agree on definitions, or they use fuzzy words like spontaneous or random that aren't real concepts. But yes, many definitions have at their core some intrinsic quality of the universe. It's not arbitrary at all. Concept of heavy, these kind of things are facts of the world. There is a real concept of mass and the effects of gravity. This isn't an arbitrary thing. It's a solid representation, a word representation for a concept that exists in reality. When the words good and bad are used, they're being used to describe something that does exist. Conditions that are not need fixing, conditions that need fixing. Not complicated. Okay, I couldn't understand. He said arbitrary, and then he said something at 8 minutes or so that I couldn't understand. Incomprehensible English. Alright, so he says, where does it come from? So we're back. This is the circularity all over again, right? So he just said, I'm not being circular, I'm not playing semantic games, I'm not playing word games. Yes, you are. You're just going back around again. We have this whole conversation. You accept the cavern of difference between the best feeling and the worst feeling, and then you tell me, where does good and bad come from? Well, it comes from that cavern of difference. If there wasn't a cavern of difference between the best feeling and the worst feeling, there'd be no such thing as good and bad. Good and bad are made by that cavern of difference. They're a description of the things on that end of the fucking cavern and the things on that end of the fucking cavern. Okay? That's it. It's not arbitrary. Bad is the negative end of the cavern of difference. Good is the positive end of the cavern of difference. Good is the fix. Bad is the broken. Bad is the lesser. Good is the completed. The reciprocal. It's in the nature of the experience. It's intrinsic. That's the argument. Now, if you're going to accept the existence of that cavern of difference between torture and ecstasy, then you've accepted the existence of the concept of this will be labeled good, the ecstasy, and the torture will be labeled bad. That's the definition. It's not arbitrary. It's not erroneous. It's not without a foundation. It's not well grounded. It is solidly grounded. It is perfectly sensible to come up with some word to describe the nature of torture and the nature of ecstasy. You can't just say the word ecstasy. You have to qualify it. And the only way we can qualify it by coming up with some way to express, to put into symbolic language, the symbol of this is brain in configuration torture. And that means sad face. That means negative condition. That means bad. We have to have language for it. So anyway, just back around to circular bullshit. To say there's no bad, to say you don't understand bad needs fixing, is to basically say, again, you can't tell the difference between nail in the eye and cupcake.
Or somebody could have just failed to invent the need to clean up. Yeah? This idea of the need to clean up, where does it come from?
See what I'm saying? Where does it come from? Well, it comes from the cavern of difference between ecstasy and torture. That's where it comes from. One condition needs to be corrected. One condition needs to be left the fuck alone. One condition is perfected. One condition is profoundly unperfected.
from my point of view, I'm saying bad is in the context of feelings, is just a literal description of preference states.
Okay, again, so it doesn't have to do with anything real. It's now just called a preference, and the preference has no correlation to a real circumstance. So it's my preference that I not be crushed in an earthquake. But it would not be a bad thing if I was crushed in an earthquake. No bad took place. Even though I'm tortured, suffocating to death for 10 days, drinking my own urine and cutting off all my appendages, it's not a bad thing. It's just a fucking preference. You get me? You see how this just goes circular again? Because there's no admission to the fact that there's a real condition in the universe called bad. It's a brain configuration where torment, torture, pain, suffering, incredibly negative, obnoxious patterns are over and over and just they're lived. And if it happens in any kind of sustainable way, it is a bad motherfucking thing. That's the, again, if you can't concede to that point, we have nothing to talk about because you've blown up value. You don't think there's anything called a real value. You just think we have fucking idiotic, arbitrary, and erroneous preferences. Well, I don't have arbitrary and erroneous preferences. I prefer not to be tortured because torture is bad, you dumb fuck. Not because I personally think torture is bad, because torture is bad. Period. Period. Shit. So again, don't tell me you're not playing goddamn semantic games. Motherfucker. I concede there's a cavern of difference between cupcake and nail in the eye. I just don't concede that it matters. Even though you said it does. So really, you people, you two thumbs up. You people, this to you, this was a rational and fair description of the circumstance. This isn't just being circular as fuck. Okay. Continuing. Alright. Oh, jeez. This is just so... It's impossible to explain, but, you know, it's just so tedious and irritating to my senses. Such a violation of my preferences to endure the strangled. I'm going to call it nonsense, because it's nonsense. It just... His premise is that language is erroneous and useless, and therefore our conversation has no... There's no point in it. It isn't, in any respect, coherent to anything called real. So, forget it. I don't accept the premise. I mean, it's a nonsense premise. Yes, our language is silly in the sense we have words in it that are silly. But those can be extracted. And certainly we can still use the word and explain. If we say love, we can explain what kind of love we're talking about. Addictive, passionate love, or love that's sympathetic and respectful. We can add more words. Clarify. Straighten the lines. Get rid of the ambiguity. Anything that might seem arbitrary. Anyway, so, you know, again, the context of this conversation is supposed to be a conversation about the nature of ethics, the nature of morality. And now he's back to defending compulsion as the definition. Compulsion ethics. Does that make any sense to anybody? I have a compulsion, therefore that will tell me what's right and wrong. I'm hungry. That's all I need to know. How I get to my food, who cares? I eat your brain. Who cares? I satisfied my compulsion. That's all that matters. No, quite obviously. Just, you know. And then so he said, They compel me to action. They do not compel others to action. Well, clearly others are compelled to action when they see a circumstance where people are in trouble. They're often compelled to do something about it. And what compels them is an understanding that there before the grace of good fortune go I. They recognize a threat. And they also many times recognize there's an immediate reality that I can stop the bleeding. I can do something to prevent further harm. So they can not only recognize a potential threat to the future, they can recognize a current circumstance that can be fixed, and they are compelled to fix it. And I would argue quite sensibly. All right. So then you start talking about preference states. So this is somehow about your preferences, and that so they should do the news. They should say, 500,000 people were killed in an earthquake, but it's no big deal because just their preference state was violated. They preferred not to be tortured and killed by the falling down of the buildings. But so what? It's just a preference. Doesn't matter. It's not really the news, so I guess I won't even report on it because who cares? A violated preference state. Gee, that doesn't sound so bad. There's no way to go with this. Like I said, again, he's just undoing the cavern of difference between torture and ecstasy and just saying, that's not what we're talking about. Well, it's all that I'm talking about. There's no ethics without that cavern. No cavern, no ethics. Cavern, ethics. If there's no difference between torture and ecstasy, there's nothing to see here. If there is a difference between torture and ecstasy, then there's something to see here and there's something to work on. Alright, people define words, that's what he says. There's no language if you don't have a common definition of words. You're saying that in your life you've always used the word bad as a meaningless term, okay, that had no relation to a condition that needed improving or fixing. That bad was just something you called something for the fun of it. Well, okay, I'm saying for my entire life, my entire association with the term bad has been an understanding that bad is associated with things where something is hurt, something is feeling not good, not well, is being damaged, and the damage does cause distress and pain and suffering. That's it. So yeah, everything I associate bad with, except some things I would argue, like I would say that maybe I had an excessive notion that death was bad, when really I think dying is bad. That death is sort of meaningless, but dying is meaningful. So I could make subtle distinctions, where my perception of the badness was maybe misplaced. Because there was no real problem. There was just a problem of not just semantics. I mean, obviously dying and death are hard to separate. And you seldom put death in any kind of context like quick and painless, which isn't so bad. Quick and painless, end of an existence, well, that's not so bad. Certainly not as bad as slow and painful, clearly. Seems like a cavern of difference almost between those two, yes. Anyway. Alright, so again, there's no conversation about ethics. Ethics is a word like every other word. It's going to have a definition. You're not going to play by any structure. You're just going to say, I make up my own words. People make up their own words. Towns make up their own words. Counties make up their own words. States make up their own words. Countries make up their own words. I mean, what the fuck? If you're not going to argue that, no, we really should have a language that has some consistency and rigidity to it, then yeah, there's no conversation. Language has now been rendered moot and futile. So I wish to preserve language, improve language where possible, but it's a necessity to communication. So yeah, kind of important. I'd say that one matters too. Anyway, I mean, this really is an insipid conversation. I'm sorry, this is an insipid conversation caused by your insipitude.
Then surely goods contain the ought.
Okay, so he says, okay, because bads have an ought, then goods have an ought. Fine, in theory, but I've already stated pretty clearly, over and over and over again, that my definition of the truth is that, well, frankly, anything you're ever going to call good is probably correcting a bad. So good conditions are unbad conditions. They've been unbadded. When something is in a good condition, it's likely in a good condition because it was unbadded.
You have to make them. And so if I say, you know, I'm feeling miserable with life, I'm feeling bad, I have to go out and make a good. And it's fine to do that. Like, it will make me feel better to go and watch a football game.
Well, I don't know if that's making a good, frankly. So again, now you're just back to compulsions and whether our compulsions should define our ethics. I feel like I'll feel so much better if I rape a woman. You know, that's not the answer. It won't work. Watching a football game, which is a preposterous waste of resources that could build better houses in Indonesia or something, frankly, isn't exactly a good. It's, in a sense, in my opinion, kind of supporting the creation of more bad. More addiction, more nonsense, more waste. Nothing good about it at all. So yes, you've corrected your minor condition of being dissatisfied with your existence at the moment, and that's good that you feel better, but I would argue that you have done society no favor, and that you've created harm in the sense that you have perpetuated and financed and supported and facilitated in some way the squandering of human potential to do good and wasted it on something fundamentally destructive, not productive.
So, and I flatly deny this. This as being contained in any definition of bad.
I deny this being contained in any definition of bad. So he's saying quite clearly that you can have a bad, okay, that doesn't need to be fixed, doesn't need to be corrected, doesn't need to be compensated for. That it can just exist as a bad, and there's nothing to see here. The bad doesn't mean anything in terms of any condition that is negative in any respect. And yet it's still bad. I say that's preposterous and ludicrous, but whatever.
Yeah, flatly deny it. So I would ask you that you evidence that it's contained in it.
The evidence is in the billions of years of evolution on Earth, well, let's say the 500,000 years where things have gone ouch. Ouch is a metaphor, a synonym for bad. Okay? So that's my evidence. My evidence is 500 million years of sentient creature evolution where the concept of bad existed when the first creature said, "Motherfucker, that hurt." There's bad. Bad existed then. Bad has existed for 500 million years, and it is always a byproduct of a sentient organism having a condition that needs fixing.
Look it up on Wikipedia, you know, dictionary.com, freedictionary.com. Look up the synonym.
Yes, they'll use synonyms. Synonyms like torture, synonyms like broken, synonyms that are perfectly, with a little bit of fairness and discipline, can be fully understood to be circumstances like the word destructive. the word will only mean something like, oh, you destroyed a house. Not that you destroyed the structure of some material rock of no significance. No one would say that's a destructive act, because now we're going to talk about the act. So I'm just saying the connotation of these words, if you use any kind of reason at all, just like the word love even, you can extract what the person means by the word. And I'm just saying bad will always end up, if you trail the bad, the definition, you'll always find a sentient organism's harm at its source. That no bad ever described in history that had any legitimacy could ever have any legitimacy unless it meant people or sentient creatures will now suffer. If there's no suffering, there's no bad. And I'm saying that, yes, find me the use of the term bad somewhere where it's used to describe something quite explicitly not in any way potentially harmful to a sentient organism. Go ahead and find it. Good luck. You're going to have an awful long hunt.
Even. And, I mean, pushing it to the synonyms in the thesaurus, you may well get some flavour of the need to...
Yes, that's right. You may well get some flavor of all those words that have something to do with sentient creatures having negative brain state. Yes, that's what you may find. Yes. And if you're at all reasonable, you'd say, yes, maybe that's a key component to this concept of bad. Not a declaration of God saying homosexuality is evil or, whatever. Not loving God is a sin. Yes, that isn't a bad thing. Even though God wrote it in his little 10 commandments that you must love him, the fact is if you don't love God, it's not a bad thing because God is a figment of people's fucking imagination. He has no conceptual reality whatsoever goddamn ever. He can feel no sense of disappointment that's greater than our own. He just can't be consequential in this manner. And you cannot possibly violate any concept of ethics or right and wrongness by merely violating a figment of people's imagination.
I was certain on that. I think I've been down this road before.
Yes, you've been down this road before, this fucking idiotic road where I spell it out as simply as I goddamn fucking can. There's brain states. Brain states that are good and fucking goddamn bad. Bad compels correction. Duh. And that they're same. There's equality, intrinsic, fundamental, generally speaking equality between the brain mechanisms. And it doesn't matter what brain is experiencing bad. It doesn't matter what brain is experiencing good. Their quality of good and bad is the same regardless of what brain manifests it. This is not a complex argument and you just keep evading the fuck out of it. And then you point your finger at me and say, I somehow have trespassed against you. Fuck you, cunt. Whatever. Okay, we'll finish this up and get the hell out of here. Fuck! Again. Oh, just amazing. Alright, so anyway, just put in context his beginning commentary where he claimed he is not just changing the subject, just circular bullshit. I will accept this definition and undo the one I accepted back here, and then later on I will accept that definition again and undo this definition, and that's the game he's playing. So we're back to explain the badness of bad. So I go through this whole thing of saying, look, bad is in the nature of the cavern of difference between this state and that state. The cavern is made out of badness. That's right. There's perfect, and then there's something less than, and that the less than is not just less than, it's a negative. It's a bad. It's not like perfect's brother, same thing as, no, the cavern of difference is this lesser condition. It's a lesser condition. Okay, so I went through all that, right? Yes. And now he's saying prove it. And I say, well, the proof is I'm conscious, fuckhead. And as a consciousness, I know the difference between torturous sensations and ecstasy. I've had them. I can see the difference. One is quite good, and one is I would sacrifice all of the good to prevent some of those bads. You can have every bit of the good. The bads are so bad. That's my personal experience with consciousness. Consciousness tells you you can't learn it any other way than being conscious. I've made that point. No consciousness could explain to something that has never sampled a feeling. It could never explain the qualitative nature of the feeling. It can't do it. There's no other similar thing to compare it to. There's nothing like this particular kind of fruit. You can't say it tastes like chicken. You can't say it's like an apple except orangey. You can't do any of that. Consciousness is consciousness. It's not like anything else we know of. And you just can't explain it using some other comparative thing, a similar thing. There is nothing similar. So I've done this. I've already made these videos. You're going to deny that I've already said this shit? And you're saying, do it again. You're saying, prove it. That's what his exact words. Prove it. I told you I can't prove it if you're going to pretend you're not conscious and that you don't know the difference, the cavern of difference between torture and ecstasy. If you don't understand that that's the nature of bad, then I can't help you. I said I have no help for you. I made many videos saying I have no help for you. If you're going to deny the existence of that cavern of quality difference, value difference between the worst feeling and the best feeling, we have nothing to talk about. Because I have no language to help you with. Because all the words are arbitrary if you're going to pretend there's no such thing as a sensation. And that I haven't had them, and that I didn't learn how to describe them and categorize them. I have learned how to categorize them. I know what categories they fit in, and I know it by experiencing them. I can't know it any other way. You can't know pain without having pain. You just can't. So the proof is in my experience. You can disqualify it if you like. I think it's arbitrary and erroneous on your part to say there's some reason to disqualify my testimony. It's perfectly consistent with most other sentient organisms in the history of sentient organisms. So I really don't see why my testimony would be disqualified as inconsistent with the evidence, because it's quite consistent with all the evidence. And the argument I'm making is that I am the logical extrapolation I'm doing is I'm saying torture in my brain, torture in someone else's brain. The torture is equally bad. Bad torture here, it's still bad torture when it's over there. The torture doesn't become good when it's over there. It doesn't change. It doesn't morph into something else. It's a torturous brain condition, a torturous brain condition. Yes, same thing. And unless that torturous brain condition over there in that other brain is deterring torture from happening in the world, it's bad. Period. Just as bad as when it was happening in my brain. Brain is brain. Torture is torture. I have no reason to think it's only torture when it's happening to me. It's only bad when it happens in my brain. That would be ludicrous, irrational, nonsensical, completely inconsistent with all data collected about the nature of existence. The nature of existence is not that I am the projector and you're all illusions. But I've already made these videos. And now you call me redundant because you forced me to say it again by saying prove it. Well, the proof is in the experience.
I'm going to just watch this Richard Dawkins video. It says Richard Dawkins irritated by irrationality, in which this Deepak somebody or other,
Chopra.
whatever his name is, Deepak somebody, or somebody Deepak.
Yes, it could be kookpack nutballish. It could be a lot of things like that. But yes, it is crazy fucker. So for some reason Dawkins was caught talking to crazy fucker. Much like me talking to you. Waste of time.
Likes to think of, similar to Pyro, that individual cells are conscious.
Yes, Matt made one of those videos too. Yeah, thou art that. Crazy fuckers everywhere. Oh my. But yeah, it's really a hard problem, this whole idea that, okay, I have a brain, I know my brain is manifesting consciousness, and now I just pretend brains don't have anything to do with it. All these neurons, all this energy used, the brain is the biggest sucker of your vital fluids of your body. It's just consuming your enterprise at a preposterous rate. It's doing that for absolutely no reason, because fuck, all you need is shoot some parameciums in there and you'll have all kinds of imagination and thoughts and ideas. Why the fuck do we have a brain when we could just replace it with a paramecium?
And, well, we'll just watch a little bit of it.
This seems like a subject change.
You accused me of jargon. You accused me of misusing language. How many people understood what I was saying?
Oh yeah, he's going to ask the audience. Pathetic.
You're lying. Okay?
Yeah, it was only 2 people, but okay. Like, for the record, it was only 2 people.
Basically, the atomic universe is stardust, and stardust has sentience in you and me.
Stardust has sentience in you and me. Yeah, that's right. After it forms into brains. Okay, brains programmed by circumstances of first the biological mechanism's agenda, and then thousands of years of acquired knowledge about, gee, you know what? I have torture, but that other guy over there has torture. Oh, yeah, that's a problem, isn't there? Torture can exist in all kinds of different places. Hey, torture might be the enemy, like the AIDS virus. Yeah, I mean, AIDS might not just be some weird thing that just happens to people. Yeah, it's caused by this virus infecting them, and if there's no virus, then there's no AIDS. Hey.
According to people like Freeman Dyson, even atoms have sentience.
Well, whatever. Dyson. Where did I hear that name before? I don't even think he's that stupid, but whatever.
Atoms have no sentience.
They have no brain. That's right. I mean, boy, Richard Dawkins just got to waste his time explaining to assholes that you goddamn need a brain to have a sensation. Holy goddamn fuck. They put that on a stage. You need a fucking stage for some ass... For somebody to have to explain that sensations happen in brains. I mean, what do people really think? It's like when they bury you, or they throw you, or they cremate you, that if you have any living cells in you, those living cells are being horribly burned to death and going, ow, 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 horror, horror. Fuck these idiots.
You disagree with Freeman Dyson? Yeah, if that's what he says, which I doubt, I disagree with him.
Yeah, see, he also doubts it, but yeah, I sort of doubt it, but, yeah, maybe he's a lunatic.
Atoms do not have sentience. Atoms contribute to making brains. Brains have sentience.
Wow, gee, it's 2015, and we have to have TV shows where people argue a point this fucking ludicrous. I mean, people are this fucking stupid. Well, I don't know how they're ever going to move up to anything else more complicated, huh, when they can't get this one right. Shit. This is like doing a puzzle that has one piece in it. Well, two pieces. You got to put one on the left and you have to put one on the right. Oh, that's so fucking challenging. Because I could get confused, and I could put the left one on the right, and I could put the right one on the left. But then the puzzle will be upside down, and there'll be no picture on it.
Seriously just said that a single cell has consciousness. A single cell has awareness.
Yes, what use is the word awareness separated from the word conscious? Hello? No use at all. And yes, that's called semantics, Deepak Chopra. It's called semantics when you pretend a word isn't necessitated. It has no meaning outside of a condition established. So yes, if you're going to establish that the word awareness means something outside of the realm of consciousness, then awareness isn't a real word anymore. I guess he's just yelling at the dog again or something. Do. I don't know. I just want to finish this, so I figured I would just do this to get this over with, because I don't really want to. I just don't want to write any more down. I don't want to. There's no point. I mean, we're all the way back to where I said I have no help for you. There's no conversation to be had. Your conscious experience hasn't informed you that there's two kinds of states, very negative, as extremes. Extremely negative, extremely positive, and that those states are the essence of value in the universe, and that plainly, if the state needs, I understand I hear it quite loudly that the negative state is negative, it needs correction, it requires action. Not that it requires a reflex from me. I don't need to go like this. I don't need to do some movement. I need to correct. I need to prevent the harm from happening. And if the prevention is good when it's for me, it's also good when it's for somebody else. That logic is, in my opinion, inescapable, perfectly rational, and you people are just playing semantics game, and yes, fuck you. You're evil.
Puppies.
I could have warned you about that. Bad idea. Pitbull especially. Just a bad idea.
What do you mean by that? That single cell has awareness. What do you mean by that? That it has the ability to respond to its environment.
Respond. So with action again, we're talking about actions. Actions are somehow the definition of what something is. If the action doesn't happen, there's no such thing. If I don't have a smile on my face, I couldn't possibly be happy or satisfied. I must have a smile on my face. There's no possible way to have the feeling without having some sort of stupid fucking goddamn reaction. Bullshit. We aren't what we react. We aren't these fucking mechanical reactions. My eyes blink. They do lots of things. I can control it. I don't have to control it. Either way. Okay? If hey, look, a hand. Oh. No harm. The hand's not going to hurt me. My eyes keep blinking. The reaction is pointless and stupid and superfluous and useless. Okay? It's a wrong reaction. It's a misplaced reaction. It's a waste of eyeball energy to move those fucking eyelids up and down when I'm really not going to hit myself in the face with the object. So why do my eyes keep doing it? Because they're idiots, okay? My eyes don't know shit about shit, okay? They're not my fucking goddamn brain. They're not my understanding. They're not my conceptual perception of the universe. They're just stupid goddamn reflexes. Stupid goddamn reflexes have nothing to do with this conversation. Stupid goddamn reflexes are not what defines torture. Torture is not the person flailing. They're flailing as you're torturing them. Has absolutely nothing to do with torture. The torture is a sensation experienced in their fucking brain.
It has the ability to respond to its environment. That is...
See, so it's really important, this definition of business.
Yeah, and I've made every effort to explain where I get my definitions from and why I think the word bad should actually mean something. And it's just absolutely silly to say the word torture, the word bad. We don't understand what these words mean. I'm saying, yes, you goddamn fucking do. I'm saying this is all just a bunch of semantics and fucking word games you're playing to evade the goddamn subject. And there's no conversation about ethics if you can't understand the word bad and we can't agree on a concept of bad. So this is just absolute motherfucking cunt bullshit. Sorry. Your compulsion ethics is crap. It's bullshit. It is shit. My compulsions have nothing to do with whether an act is good or bad. Absolutely nothing fucking goddamn to do with whether an act is good or bad.
It's quite fine to say, given that definition, of course you're right. But if you get to choose your definitions,
Well, again, quite obviously he's not getting to choose his definition. Richard Dawkins is saying it's a preposterous definition of awareness to say that anything that reacts, anything that has a reactive energy based on physics, if I shoot electricity through a wire, that's awareness going through the wire. No, it isn't awareness going through the fucking wire, okay? It's a mechanical, physical process, but has absolutely nothing to do with the conscious experience.
If consciousness means is allowed.
Well, it's not allowed. Look, the whole point is Richard Dawkins is saying, look, there's no fucking medium to have a conversation. If you want to have a ludicrous definition of the word consciousness and awareness, then there's no point in me talking to you because you're a fucking goddamn nutter. Okay, I think Richard Dawkins is sitting in his chair saying, gee, I wish somebody would run over this motherfucker because he's a fucking huge goddamn menace, liability, blight, okay, to the progress of the human species. Morons like Deepak Chopra are goddamn sewage walking and talking, okay? They are a fucking menace to our goddamn maturation as a goddamn thing in the universe. We will not become any kind of good thing in the universe with Deepak Chopra idiotic, moronic notions of fucking reality. He is a fucking idiot. And so the fuck are you?
To mean that you respond to your environment, then of course the single cell, the atom is conscious, and so it's.
Oh, just fuck this. I mean, I know there's only a minute left, but I mean, fuck you. Quite obviously, Richard Dawkins is protesting this nonsense. And I'm going to call it nonsense. Richard Dawkins is calling it nonsense. I think anybody with a fucking IQ over fucking goddamn 80 is calling it nonsense, motherfucker.
And to say, well, yes, you're right. It has consciousness. The single cell, the atom has consciousness. If you take that point of view, no, chewing my slipper up. Gee. They want the WALK.
Well, they're entitled to it, asshole. You brought them into existence. You're responsible for their fucking goddamn condition, shithead. He doesn't want to walk. He's chewing his slipper because he's a fucking dog. Dogs chew shit, retard.
Come on, you get down. Play with it. He knows what he wants. Because he knows the routine. And this is what he does. This is how he pesters me for what he wants.
Whatever. He's a
but I'm
dumb
to make
animal.
Before we go do the routine thing. And because he's not playing with the puppy, all hell and all shit is breaking out. Come on, get there. Soon. So...
Context again. You see, I was viciously attacked by a pit bull, so I really don't see any humor in any of this. I really don't.
Oh. Yeah. You know, I gotta end this video now, unfortunately.
Good. Thank you. I think we already got your point. There's no point in having a conversation because you will not agree on a single conceptual word ever having a consistent meaning for more than 10 minutes. Yes, for this 10 minutes I will concede that torture is fundamentally different than ecstasy. But 10 minutes later I'm going to say, prove it. Fuck you. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.